Right, so we're ready to start the podcast, and in true fashion, we still don't know how to start a podcast. You'd think after 5 episodes, we'd be sort of getting the hang of it, and we'd have a bit of an idea. But I think I like this opening. I like this cold open.
Maybe our guest can suggest something to for our opening podcast. Would our guest like to open this podcast?
I can't believe you're jumping the gun and announcing that we've got a guest before I've announced that we've got a guest.
Tough luck. It's happened.
YouTube professionals are getting no help from me at all. You're on your own for this bit.
Fantastic. Well, in that case, welcome to Wargamers Anonymous. My name is Josh, or Captain Pickle, whatever you want to call me. And as always, I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Elston from Elstonation. Thank you very much for tuning in and checking out this episode of Wargamers Anonymous, your one-stop shop for all your wargaming needs and also food and other stuff.
I like to call you Sallywag because you did say you could call you whatever you want, so I'm going to call you Sallywag.
Yeah, I'm going to regret that at some point in the very near future, aren't I? As Elston so correctly pointed out in that smooth introduction, we do have a guest, our very first guest on Wargamers Anonymous. He is a man that is very close to my heart.
Lovers.
We have got the absolutely fantastic, awesome, one of the best moderators on YouTube. We've got Mr. Bofnet. Bofnet, welcome to Wargamers Anonymous.
Thank you very much for having me. It is an honour to be the first guest on this, the second highest rated gaming podcast in Denmark.
Yes, it is. It should be a true honour.
What's the highest rated?
I don't know. Probably something like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something funny to say then, and I couldn't think of anything.
It's my other podcast is the highest rated, so that's fine.
Let's find some Denmark jokes, quick. Someone.
Quickly with the Denmark jokes.
Someone Google this.
But yes, welcome to the show. If you enjoy the episode, if you like what you're hearing, and soon what you'll be seeing, then make sure to leave a like, leave a review, subscribe to the podcast, follow the podcast so that you automatically get updated when new episodes come out every 2 weeks when we do so. Today we've got a jam-packed show with plenty of stuff to talk about, but before we get onto that, as always, we're going to jump into what we've been working on. So we'll start with the guest, I think, this week. Bofnet, what have you been working on for the last few weeks?
Well, thankfully, as it's been hollybobs from work, I've been able to finish off a couple of projects. I've working with the Discord challenge for this month of April armies. I've been writing army lists and finishing off the odd 1 or 2 model to get some armies up. So I now have 4 2K armies ready with lists fully painted. Managed to finish off a core graph for my Khorne Bloodbound army, Gaunt's Ghost, and a Commissar for my Imperial Guard army, and just a few other little bits and bobs and some busts and stuff just to keep myself going.
Wow, very busy.
Nice.
Very busy indeed.
Big dopamine hits for like finishing armies there. That's well done.
Yeah.
Applause.
Yeah, it's normally you sort of plan an army and then they change the points and the rules and your army goes out the window. And because I did have Creed, but then some horrible metal person stole him, so I then couldn't use him again. So,
Elston, what have you been working on over the last few weeks?
Well, I'm still in my building challenge thing. I don't know. Yeah, I'm actually getting towards the end of it now. It's quite
wow.
Yeah, I've made one kind of like substitution, exception, should we say, that some of my Space Marines for Horus Heresy stuff are not going to get built until Heresy 2.0 drops. So I am holding that one in reserve for obvious reasons because I'm yeah. But everything else, I am currently in the thralls of working with the toughest resin kit to date I've ever built. It's the Super Heavy Walker from Mortian, Super Heavy Walker tank, sorry, and it is hollow. So every single part needs to clip together, and the sprue gates are as big as my arm.
Wow.
And there is resin dust everywhere. I've had to get the Dremel out. It's just, when have you ever used a Dremel and you get like the big tip, like the big sanding, like
I always
wheel
have the big
things?
tip.
You've always got a big tip. Everyone loves a big tip.
Yeah.
Just ease through it. Just breathe through it.
It's the clean up afterwards that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, it's retraction is a bitch. But right.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it is. Oh my god, it is one of the worst kits that I've ever had to put together. I'm really hoping it looks good afterwards. If not, it's about 250 quid's worth of pain right now. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that's me. How about yourself, old Sallywag?
I have been knee deep in Age of Sigmar over the last couple of weeks. The reason we've got Baphomet on as a guest is because he is up for the weekend visiting myself and Paraquin Pickle for my very first introduction to Age of Sigmar. So short history lesson. I've had the Dominion box, or the Orc half of the Dominion box, or rather two sets of the Orc half of the Dominion box sat in my house since it launched. I was super excited for them. I started painting them. Didn't like the colour scheme that I gave them, so it sort of dimmed the excitement on that project. Since then, I've gone back to them a few times, like 4 or 5 times with different colour schemes, trying to work something out. Not enjoyed any of them. We set a date for my first game. I've been promising Baphomet literally since Dominion came out that he could teach me how to play Age of Sigmar. And it was finally set for yesterday, for Friday. So I was like, this is 2 weeks ago, I was like, shit, I need to paint an army. Because I don't play with unpainted miniatures now. I only play with painted stuff. So I buckled down last Wednesday's live stream, started painting, and once again hated the colour scheme that I'd picked. So then after the stream, I stayed up and just anger painted until about 1:30 in the morning.
Anger painted.
Yeah, I was just so annoyed. I literally just sat in silence and painted until it looked good.
You're all right there, Pickle. No, leave me alone.
Yeah. I came up with a colour scheme that I really liked. I went, yep. I painted 4 of them. I thought, this looks great. I'm going to do them like this. And then I got the rest of them built and then painted them differently. So I've ended up going with it's a bit synthwavy, a bit 80s, quite bright, which is obviously my sort of style. And I've got, there's 25 models painted, two squads of Gut Rippers, a Shaman, a Pot Grot, and 3 Man Skewer Bolt Boys. Played my first game of Age of Sigmar last night, first 2 games. Absolutely loved it. I lost both games, but they were both very close. And
extremely close.
Like literally down to 1 dice roll.
Yeah. The second game was general on general in a forest. Both were heavily wounded, and it was 1 dice roll.
When you said general on general in a forest, my brain went somewhere else.
Brilliant. So that's what I've been working on. And then I spent about an hour last night after playing and after eating Chinese food, writing my 1,000 point list, my 1,500 point list, another 1,500 point list, and then a 2,000 point list.
So are you going shopping at Murfield today by any chance?
We are heading over to Murfield, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, whether I buy anything for my orcs or not, I don't know, because
after writing a list.
Well, the thing is, I've got another 20 Gut Rippers already. I've got another 6 Man Skewer Bolt Boys.
Do they slot into your list, though?
Yes. So I've already got a lot of the stuff that I need.
All right. But there is stuff you need, though.
There's some stuff that I do need, yeah. It's some of the bigger stuff. Like I want the big vulture character. And I want some of the really big projectile guys. The Beast Skewer Bolt guys, or whatever they're called. I will learn names at some point.
It's so going to happen this afternoon. It really is so going to happen. He's like, I'm not going to, and it is so going to happen.
Yeah. So the other thing as well, I would like everyone at home that's listening to this to also, because I've been piecing together an image in my head whilst Pickle's been talking. Imagine Pickle knee deep, as in there is a bucket below his feet in a chair. So there's a bucket full of, I don't know, baked beans or something like that. And then buckling himself to the chair, like with a belt, because that, and then anger painting. is my mental image. I would like everyone else to conjure that image in their
I
head
don't
right now.
understand where the baked beans came from.
I don't know. You said knee deep, and I'm just putting baked beans in there. So
Fantastic.
Knee
So
deep
yeah,
baked beans buckled to a chair.
So that's what I've been working on, anger painting, and then once the anger painting subsided, the rest of it was a lot of fun to do. Nice, easy color scheme, mostly airbrush and oil wash, and then a couple of detail bits. But yeah, I'm quite happy with the army, and I am looking forward to adding some more stuff to it. So I'm going to get a lot of the stuff built that I've already got, but then yeah, there are a couple of the bigger like characters and the big monsters and stuff that I do want to add in. But for now, I can do a 1,500 point list quite easily with the stuff that I've already got.
Out of curiosity, how long did it take you to paint?
So the army that I've got, the 600 point army that I've got now, took me. I started it the Wednesday night and painted the 4 up, and then I'd finished it by the Sunday.
So you were angry for like 5 days?
No, I was only angry painting on the Wednesday night. The rest of the time was fine.
Oh, right. You did. I fully envisage you waking up angry, getting down there.
No. So I painted the 4 that I'd got built, that I'd been using as tester models, did those Wednesday night. Thursday night, I sat and built the rest of the models that I needed to do for my army. Friday night, I primed them all. And then Saturday and Sunday, I painted them. And then I finished the last 2 off, which were the 2 characters, the Shaman and the Potgrot. I finished those off on Wednesday night this week.
So, lesson learned from this is while Pickle's experimenting, leave him alone because he is an angry man.
But you do get a bucket of beans after it.
Exactly, and a belt.
And with that amazing mental image instilled in everyone's minds, I think it's about time that we moved on to the main topic. So this week, the main topic is a bit of a funny one. Not a funny funny because it's us that's discussing it. So the topic that we're going to talk about this week is the meta for Warhammer 40k. We're going to talk about the meta. We're going to talk about Codex creep. We're going to talk about balancing. All these amazing, lovely topics that streamers and gamers love to talk about at length. And we thought it'd be amazing for 3 people that don't play competitively to talk about this. So poor Boffnet has planned far more than me and Elston ever do for the topics of the show. And then what happened 2 days before we recorded? Games Workshop released an update and ruined his carefully planned notes.
I spent 4 days watching meta videos, watching reports from Adepticon, writing detailed notes about armies and all these sorts of stuff. And I'm like, there we are. Thursday, Games Workshop came along and nerfed it all. So, but I think we can still talk about how they've nerfed it and how they look at the nerfing and the Codex creep and why things have to be done, which is quite an important element.
Absolutely. And I think the update actually came timed like quite well for considering what we were planning on talking about today, because it's part and part. It's like part of the problem itself is the way and stuff that stuff is updated. I say problem, like it can be looked at as a problem, I guess. So like first off then, I guess we should sort of set things up. Like, have either of you guys ever played, whether it's current edition or older editions, have you ever played in a competitive setting at all, whether it's a one-off tournament or a league or anything?
No. The only thing I've done was like a heresy kind of campaign tournament with all my friends, but it was very easy going and it was spanned over like 8 weeks.
Yeah. So I've only ever played in 2 tournaments previously, but this is like this is 4th and 5th edition. So it's not like it's a recent thing. I'm definitely not a pro. So they're the only times I've ever played in a competitive sense. And when I say I played in a competitive setting, but I didn't take a competitive list because I don't generally take competitive lists. I take like fluffy lists or just what looks cool.
I think one of the things that's put me off as well is what you just sort of alluded to there, is the competitive nature of a tournament. And obviously it's going to be competitive. But I want to go there and have fun. And you see forums and things on 40k tournaments going, it was all very salty and this got angry and this happened and stuff. And I think that potentially puts a lot of people off. And if you turn up and there's somebody opposite you who's meta chasing and has spent 600-700 quid of commission painting to get an army just to win the battle, you're like, are you actually in this hobby? You're enjoying a different element of a hobby that I do. So I think that can put quite a lot of people off to entering tournaments and things.
Yeah. I'd weigh in on that as well. At the same time that this hobby is obviously. It's several different parts to it. Is obviously there's the creative aspect of it, but the painting, the assembling, stuff like that. The gaming aspect is a different mindset completely. It's obviously we all enjoy playing games and stuff like that, but to actually compete is something else entirely in a weird essence of like, I want to win something. It's not like just like winning a game. It's like I want to go take on multiple people and become the best. It's not always true. Some people will literally go to tournaments just to play games, and that's absolutely fine. But I would say a good majority of people are going in there to try and see how they can do and how they can like rank themselves up effectively.
Exactly. It's also that scary thing of just not wanting to look like a noob.
Right?
You see, and delving in this last week to the murky world of meta podcasts and streams and Twitch and stuff like that, and watching these people just sit there rattling off, of course, we've got 2+ thing for that, and that, and that comes out, and that counts as that, and don't forget you can do that and that and that in order. And I'm still sat there looking up what I need to roll to hit. You know, it's like, I don't want to look like that idiot who doesn't quite know the name of his unit.
Do you think these people, though, the people that stay in touch with the meta completely, like, I don't know how they remember it all.
No.
Like, it is beyond my capabilities as a person to go, right, I can remember all the rules for all the codexes and all the units to know how to best play my army. That's got to be a dedication, right?
The thing is, though, it's just a different part. Like, to place a, not devil's advocate, but it's like this it's the same as we do with the hobby side. Like, if I said to you, oh, I need to paint such and such, you could go, oh, well, this paint from this company would be really good, or like maybe do this or try this technique or whatever. Like, it's just you learn by repetition and by doing and by trying things.
And I think once you've got the base knowledge, just the updates and the things just add a layer on top of that. So people like us who sort of look at it from a completely start point of view go, my God, that's a lot. But if you've continually been doing it and playing, you're just changing numbers, you're just tweaking stuff continuously rather than learning a whole new block in one go.
Yeah,
that go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I don't want it to come across when I say it's a dedication, I don't want it to come across as a negative connotation. It's more a case of, like, I'm dedicated to painting stuff, and people have seen my stuff. Yeah, that's that. So it's as you say, it's a different shift, but it's a dedication because you'll probably find that maybe they're not so into the creative side of the hobby. Maybe.
Watching, so because having spent a week watching it, I'm now an expert. You get lots of these guys are talking on their podcasts and streams and things about how they want to try and paint stuff and how they want to do bits a little bit better. And I do think there is that element of a lot of these really, really high level meta gamers and people who understand things and tournament organizers and stuff possibly don't have that amount of time to do the hobby. So a lot of them are saying, well, I had this commission done for me, but I would like to try and paint. So it is an interesting other side to where we look at it from. Yeah.
It's like the other side of the mirror.
Yeah, just as a funny aside to that, don't you find it amusing that like competitive players will often commission people to paint and build and their armies and stuff, but people that do like high-end painting don't commission people to go and play with their armies.
I mean, that's just a weird thought. Go play this game for me.
I mean, it's you're basically saying that you're Malcador and everybody else is the Emperor.
Yeah.
But no, that sort of knowledge that is needed for. I mean, you can go to a tournament. Like anyone can go to a tournament, and just go and have a laugh. But if you're like properly into the competitive scene or wanted to get into it, you don't just need to know your army and what it can do. You also need to know every
Everyone else
possible combination that's going to come at you for all the other armies and know how to counter it. Like, and
Yeah.
that's the part that scares me. It's not knowing my army, because like I don't get to play very often, but I like to think that I've got a fairly decent knowledge of how my army works and how to play it. But then I have no idea how like Chaos Space Marines play, or Demons, or like any of these other things like Tyranids. I've no idea what Tyranids can do or can't do. So
It was really
I don't-
impressive watching these live reaction videos to the data slate drop. Of people, certainly these sort of American guys who were sitting there with their morning coffee, woken up at 7 a.m, reading this data slate and going, "Oh yeah, well of course that one and that. How would that work with so and so's response to what?" And as you said, they knew every permutation for every army. It is massively impressive how these guys have got that knowledge in their heads.
It's just a weird thing that I've noticed in generalistic terms and stereotyping. So please don't anyone take this as gospel. But I find the people in the US, in America, are on the edge of competitive. They're a slight bit more competitive than a lot of people. Now, that's not true for all. By all means, there are a lot of people in the UK and everywhere else in the world that are competitive. But I think it's like in American culture, competitiveness is kind of a staple diet. It's kind of, from what the attitude of a lot of things I get is, America is a competitive place. Again, not trying to put a negative connotation on it. It's just they're like, we like to play, we like to win. And you're like, okay, wow. Like, yeah. But for someone who is not competitive like myself, it's a complete, like, I don't understand this. It's like a weird thing, right?
I mean, I've certainly not got on my to-do list to go to America to play a game.
Yeah.
I think on the topic of like the people like you mentioned, Buffnet, the people live reacting to the data slate and instantly thinking, oh well, how will it work with this and how will it work with that? Sort of leads me on to the next part of this discussion, which is the fact that we have to have these sort of data slates and updates and FAQs and stuff. And one of the hot topics amongst competitive streamers in being what the fuck Games Workshop. So it's a long running thing of like the fact that Games Workshop doesn't seem to be able to balance 40k. We've all heard of sort of Codex creep. New Codex comes out, it's the best. The next Codex comes out, it's the best. Until 6 weeks or so later, and they get a massive nerf to the stuff that was making it the best, and it completely swings in the other way. Now, my question is, if we've got all these people out there that can sit and live react to something that they didn't know was coming, that's literally just dropped on them, and they're instantly going, oh yeah, well this will work with this, and this will do that, and this will do that. Why doesn't Games Workshop seem to, do this before they put codexes out and limit the amount of updates needed and try and, work things? I know that it's not, like, just to caveat that, I know that, like, realistically, it is almost impossible to balance a game that is the size of 40k, but it's not the fact that we have the updates, it's the fact that when they do come, they sort of tend to swing so far back in the other direction that it's kind of like, why did you think this was a good idea in the first place?
I've got an idea on this one, because I believe it or not, I've actually been watching the meta quite a lot. I've been keeping up with rules and stuff like that. Not playing it, just looking at it, and a distinct pattern from an abstract point of view, because that's all I'm looking at it as, because there's no way I'm keeping all these rules in my head, is Games Workshop have tried for years and years and years now to make it balanced and to come up with a flavorful army that is strong, but unique, but isn't too strong, isn't like too overpowered. And I think someone in Games Workshop just lost their marbles, or just gave up and went, you know what? Fuck this. All right, we're done. Right, there's no point anymore. There's no point in trying to make this game balanced. Let's not do that anymore. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to make it batshit crazy. And they're leaning into it on a monstrous scale, which I love, by the way, because like night weapons where they're dishing out 16 mortal wounds or something like from one gun, you're like, seems a bit broken to me. Seems a little bit broken.
I think you have to look at it not in. Sorry.
No, there was the other thing I just wanted to tag on the end of that though is they've just released it, and now I think they're just tweaking it as and when. I think they've developed a new format of tweaking it as well. But we'll go into that. I'll let Bofnet say his piece next.
Yeah, I think you have to look at what Games Workshop are doing, not in using 40k as isolation, but in taking into account AOS as well. And it's now time for me to start talking about our great Lord Sigma. Let him into your lives, people. Age of Sigmar was an interesting thing, because when you've got a game system, there are only 3 ways that you can control the balance. You can either scrap it and start again, you can nerf, or you can Codex creep. And Age of Sigmar was interesting because when they got rid of the world that was and started this new round, everybody went, oh, it's terrible, it's awful. But they really focused on the gaming, and the lore almost sort of came secondary to that. Now we're in the 3rd edition. It's a quicker, simpler, easier thing, but there are much more dice rolls. And when you get more dice rolls, you get more chance and you get more excitement, because everything comes down to, right, I've got 20 hits now, and now I've got 30 hits and stuff. Still with 40k, you've got one dice. And if you can buff that one dice, you've got more of a chance of getting your results. So if you're a meta player, you work out how to make that one dice more favourable. If suddenly the person you're shooting or attacking has got more dice to defend and more wounds to defend, you've got to get more dice.
Yes.
So a lot of the older armies, as a guard player, I put myself firmly in that category with a 5-year-old Codex, are not balanced for the modern game, where Games Workshop has started putting 40k, as you say, into 15 attacks, 10 dice, 20 dice, 30 dice. The older factions are struggling massively with that because they've still got 1 wound, they've still got 5, 6 plus saves and stuff like that. So when you look at the meta tables and how people are performing, it's the older codexes that are at the bottom. And all the playtesting is done with the newer codexes against the newer codexes, and they all tend to be at the top.
Yeah.
So working towards edition 10, which I think they're sort of aiming at doing. And by the way, Games Workshop, Jarvis, if you're listening, if you don't call it edition X, you are missing out on something big there.
Warhammer
X. I think they're almost abandoning the older codexes and just going, they're going to be rubbish until we do the new codexes. And then trying to get everything in this new almost AOS style of more dice, more wounds, more dice, more chance to kill, more chance of chance taking an effect in the game, rather than meta players knowing what they're doing. 1 dice roll, I'm going to get 4 buffs on that dice roll so you can't counter it.
See, the cynical part of me, and this is the cynical part of myself, and I'm certainly not alone in this way of thinking.
Not the positive part, the cynical part.
The cynical part.
Know what you're going to say.
It's not a part of. It's not something that I particularly necessarily believe, but just to sort of play devil's advocate and sort of voice the opinion that is quite strong out there, is that the reason the new codexes are so overpowered and so good is so that people will go out and buy the new codexes and new models and new armies. And then the reason why they then nerf them, the reason they're so, because like Harlequins, for example, when they were playtesting that, even if they were playtesting it against the newer stuff and not taking older stuff into account, the fact that came out and was so overpowered and stuff was so cheap. I mean, how many points has the vehicle thing's gone up by?
Void Weavers were the one that people were spamming. So Void Weaver was 90 points each, and you could have 3 units of free on the table. And
they've now gone up to
130.
Yeah, so like that's a massive increase in points. Like at some point before that codex come out, someone must have looked at that and gone, "These are cheap. People are going to spam them." I don't believe that a company the size of Games Workshop can get it and not think about that. Because to me, if playtesting stuff, you would go to the extremes and you would go, right, people are going to take loads of these. How will that overpower games?
You know what? I'm going to counter that, and I'm going to say no, they didn't, because I have a reason why I think they wouldn't. And again, I'm playing a little bit of a devil's advocate here as well, because
You're playing devil's advocate to my devil's advocate.
Exactly, a double advocate,
Double devil.
double devil.
Is there a devil's advocate meta that we can now nerf here?
Possibly. So this is going back to my point where, again, I think Games Workshop have just given up trying, and I'm guessing either, I don't know how big the teams are for playtesting, and I know they use outside sources and stuff like that, but I fully anticipate that they've kind of got to the stage in the mindset of going, no matter what we do, we're going to be wrong. So we can either spend ages trying to balance this out against everything else and doing everything else, or we can make it absolutely insane, and then we'll just deal with the consequences afterwards. And I believe that's what, I honestly believe that's kind of their approach to it now, because they're
They
like, right,
also only playtest against the recent codexes.
Yeah.
So when they playtest, they'll playtest the new codex against the last 6, 8, 10 codexes. So some of the older stuff will just get completely ignored in playtesting. And that's why those are bad in the meta. So when you've got a strong codex come out like Grey Knights and Tau, and you do the Eldari playtesting, the Eldari against Grey Knights is a decent match. So you look at your playtesting and go, okay, that's Eldari possibly a little bit strong. We might nerf that a bit, but that's a decent match. Then you throw into their Imperial Guard and Chaos Space Marine, and you go, oops.
Yeah, right. Here's the thing on a logistical standpoint as well. So say for like Games Workshop's a multi-million/billion-pound company. And everyone's working towards a target at the end of the day. That's the whole thing with big companies like that. You're working to a timescale, a target, effectively, of what you have to achieve. Now, if your boss comes and goes, right, okay, you've got a year to play test this thing with the upcoming codexes and XYZ. Now, if you come back and you say to the boss, this is going crazy, right? Like, we can't balance this against this. Then, okay, what resources do you need to make it more balanced? You got more people. So more people means more time, more wages, everything X, Y, Z. Everything starts increasing. Also, as well, there's going to be a side mandate off of it saying, like, this kit's, or for example, this starter kit's been out for ages. Everyone's done with buying it now. No one needs to buy it anymore. And we're sold out of this unit. So what we need to do is we need to flip it. So the sold out units, the ones that you can better get, are no longer in that kind of demand, and we need to make other things which we've got excess of become more in demand effectively. So I fully anticipate there are these kind of briefs, and if on a manager's perspective you were looking at your playtesting team and you go, right, what's your results out of this? What have you got? And they go, right, okay, well, this doesn't work, this does work. And they'll go, right, what do you need to actually, how much more time do you need to get this done? If they say, okay, another 3 months, that will delay schedules and all kinds of things. So I fully anticipate the managers, or possibly or in a joint concert, everyone's gone, no, we're not going to do this anymore. Right. Make that one awesome, make that one less awesome. And then send it to playtesters, and then off it goes.
I think you've also got to, at time of recording, if you're listening to us in the future, we are still in the grips of a thing called a pandemic. And you look at things like Eldar have been happening over the past 18 months. You have to get the models out for the playtesters to use. So that would have been happening 6 months ago, a year ago. So you would have still, certainly for this current crop of stuff, you would have still had that thing of actually getting playtesters in a room together rolling dice was a bit of an issue. We know last year there were times when the Games Workshop factory had to shut because they had COVID outbreaks. So again, if you're looking at the models being produced were delayed by 2 weeks, and then the playtesting was delayed by another 3 weeks, and that deadline doesn't change, the playtesting gets truncated, it gets shrunk down. So you sort of go, we'll throw it out in the beta state and then nerf it later.
I mean, I'm not going to downplay like the effects that COVID will have had on stuff like this, but if we're all completely honest, it's not like this is a new issue that's just occurred since COVID. Like Codex creep has been a thing since I started 20 years ago. It's just got worse and worse and worse as time's gone on.
No.
And I think we should have caveated this at the beginning of the segment. Like, we're not negative against Games Workshop. We're not like anti-Games Workshop. Oh, I'm going to boycott. We're not those sorts of people. We all collect, build, paint, play with a hell of a lot of Games Workshop stuff, probably more than we should do. So just to caveat that, we're not, anti-Games Workshop. We're not generally negative on Games Workshop. This is just one of those topics that comes up a lot in the community. And especially with sort of the more recent releases, it does seem to be being vocalized a hell of a lot more. So it was something I wanted to look at it as an outsider to the competitive scene. And it has been interesting, like as we've all done, is like looking at streamers that talk about it on a regular basis and videos that talk about it on a regular basis, and just taking a look at it. And
I think any game system will have these issues as well. You look at anything that's coming out, there will be balance issues. I know ArcWorld players and stuff will say, oh yeah, well they've just done this quick update and stuff like that. With Games Workshop, as you say, it's a multi-billion pound company. These things are bigger, there are more people, the voices are louder when there's a slight issue. One thing I will say that Games Workshop do is they do tend to listen. They do tend to listen to the gamers, and this data slate that was released this week is a classic example of that. That they saw from Adepticon and other tournaments that the second they released the Eldari thing and people got onto what Harlequins can do, their win rate went up to like 75% or around that area. And Games Workshop looked at that and they looked at the results and went, oh yeah, okay. Talked to a couple of people in the community and went, what should we do? How do we do this? Okay, let's balance everything out. And the response to that data slate has been, apart from Eldari players, has been fantastic across the meta. Everybody's been going, this is brilliant. They've listened to us. They've understood what was wrong with the current situation and done things to fix it. Now, that's not to say that within 2 weeks, some very clever people will have worked out some little nerfs, some other things that they can do. And I know my Imperial Guard Discord, where I sat up until 2 o'clock in the morning with some people in our codexes trying to work out new voice of command rules and stuff like that. And so people will always find a way around stuff, and no amount of playtesting will get around that, because you've suddenly got 1 million players worldwide who are trying to exploit every little glitch that they can. But at least watching what goes on in the community and watching the results of these tournaments and looking at these results and things and adapting is something that they do well.
Do.
So that's the thing, and I think realistically, if you looked at it from an objective point of view, like realistically, like 40k is way too big a game to be able to completely balance. Like there's always going to be stuff that is better than other stuff. And that's just the fact that each army has got so many different choices just within that one army, and then there's like however many different factions there are. It is a massive game,
and the more the community demands that, the more the community want varied objects, varied rules, varied stratagems, and more of this, the more possibilities there are for the game to break.
And I'm going to actually compliment GW on their new way of updating and stuff, because that's the quickest turnaround I've ever seen on fixing something. I was like, that is impressive, actually. They've seen something broken and fixed it within a couple of weeks or whatever. And I'm like, well done. Like, this is kind of what I think everyone wants now. It's like these broken things to be rectified in a way. I mean, obviously the people who are winning, they're not going to be happy about it, but everyone else is.
I'm at this point going to talk to you about our Lord God and Saviour Sigmar again. And I think the way that they're running Age of Sigmar is fantastic, that they respond really quickly to issues in Sigmar. So this a couple of weeks ago, they brought out a new balance thing for Sigmar as well. And I've just lost it on my iPad here. So they introduced this thing called Hunters and Prime. Right. So they again looked at the meta and looked at what was happening in tournaments and realized that some units were OP and people were spamming these units, and some armies were weak. So they introduced a thing called prime hunters and prime targets and hunters. So it's just again like a data slate, and now certain units give you extra victory points if you kill them in a battle. So if you rock up with fulminators, so for Stormcast, fulminators and long strikes are the ones that have been meta. Everybody's been spamming and they've been doing all the damage. So now Games Workshop has said, okay, you can still use these. We're not going to increase the points value. We're not going to change the rules. But if your opponent kills one of them, they get 1 extra victory point. And then they've looked at the armies that are weak. So things like Gloomspite Gits is sort of the big one, and Nighthaunt. And they've said, right, if you're playing one of these armies that are weak and you kill one of these units that are overpowered, you're going to get 2 victory points.
Wow.
So if you now rock up at a tournament with a Nighthaunt army and you're playing Stormcast, and Stormcast guy has got 3 units of long strikes and 3 units of fulminators, if you destroy those, you're suddenly getting 12 extra victory points over what would have got for playing the battle normally. Yeah. So it's a really cool way of going, okay, we're just going to buff the victory points. We're not going to change, we're not going to nerf stuff, we're not going to increase points value, because there'd be a lot of Sons of Beaver players who'd be really angry if they suddenly put the points value up for a lot of those guys, because you wouldn't be able to afford an army, because they're 400 or 500 points a model. So you increase the points, somebody's wasted 500 quid in an army that they can't use. So you just make it that in a competitive match, those give the opponent more victory points. So now you have to think, am I going to use those units? If I am going to use them, do I defend them? How tactically do I keep them away from the enemy to protect those victory points?
Yeah, it's like a nerf by situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, rather than the models and stuff themselves. That's a really interesting way of doing it.
Well done, Games Workshop again.
Yeah, well done, Games Workshop.
Everything is right with the world.
So I think we've sort of really talked about everything we can talk about with it. Like from our perspective as people that don't play competitively, looking in from sort of behind, looking in through the window at the sort of carnage that is the current Games Workshop 40k meta. And the final parting thought on all of this is that I'm just really glad that I don't play competitively and that I just sort of like rules come out and I go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's cool. But then that's about it. And I don't really get worked up about it. And I don't really get angsty about it because I'm too concerned about, oh, I need to get this highlight done on this model. And I just game for fun.
You say that, but
I'm getting into Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, after I won on the final dice roll last night, and there was 2 minutes where he sat in a chair just staring at the board, I'd say there was a bit of angstiness going on there.
So that was our main topic. Have you guys got anything you want to say before we wrap this section up?
No, not really, apart from the excessive amount of doo-doo, which I applaud again.
Yeah, I'd just like to say Age of Sigmar, I think, is a fantastically balanced game. Get into it, and please can we have a new guard codex?
Yeah, that's got to be on the way soon, right?
I feel like people have been saying that for years.
Yeah, it's like World War I. It'll be over before Christmas.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So that was our main topic. If you've got any thoughts, anything you'd like to share, any ideas, anything you'd like to correct us on, be sure to drop your comments down in the comments below or on the discussion channel over on the Pickle Jar Discord. Link for that will be in the description. Now it's about time that we moved on to Elston's happy place section of the podcast, that being Snack Attack. This is the section of the show where we rate and review wargaming snacks. These are viewer and listener suggestions that we try, sometimes live on the podcast, sometimes we try them aside from the podcast, and then we give them scorings as a wargaming snack. And what we mean by a wargaming snack is that it's something that you would put in your face whilst playing your favourite tabletop game.
Yeah, stick
Now this
stuff
week-
in your face.
Now, this week, we are trying out another listener suggestion in the form of, I've got Walker's tomato ketchup flavoured crisps.
I have a story. So the original suggestion from this was for Lay's, which is a brand in Europe, I believe, of crisps. They look nigh on identical to Walker's crisps, which we have in the UK. But apparently they're not. Anyway, I thought we had to get the exact brand. So I ordered some off of Amazon, and I thought I was getting a multi-pack, but I didn't. I got like a big pack. And it's from France. It's
How many packets of crisps have you got?
No, I've got one. I've just got one. Right, it's Les chips préférées des Français, les Savoyeux ketchup. Ingredients de qualité. However, I fully admit I've made a doo-doo. I ordered these. This one packet of crisps cost me £5.
Wow. I mean, that's one.
I thought we had to do the brand, so that was the only place I could find them.
So I ordered a multi-pack. I ordered 6 packets of Walker's tomato ketchup flavoured crisps, but I've got a packet and Buffnut has got a packet as well. And these cost me, I think it was about the same as you paid for your 1 packet of crisps that I got my multi-pack for.
If these crisps suck, I'm going to lynch someone.
I've got a packet of Walkers from downstairs, and they cost me nothing.
Yeah. So we have got, while you guys start opening and trying these, we've got a new rating system.
They smell like prawn cocktail. Sorry.
We've got a new rating system that we're using. So we're still going to do the overall score, which is out of 10, using whole numbers, not decimal points. But we've also got our individual scores for the finger residue thing.
Was it contamination? Was it?
That's it. Finger residue contamination, the weight to chew ratio, and the oil
index.
Oil index. Yes.
Yeah.
So they're different things. So that is how oily the food is in your mouth or on your fingers. Finger residue is like if there's like dust. So if you were eating Wotsits, for example, they're quite dusty. They would rate quite low or quite high. I don't know. Which is the bad version? Is it low or high for finger residue?
I think low is probably a bad number, isn't it? Because you've got lots of stuff on your finger, so it's bad.
Yeah. So lower score is bad. Higher score is better. Yeah. And then weight to chew is basically how
you
much.
are talking to the inventor of a weight to chew ratio here.
Yeah, that is correct. Buffnet suggested this in the discussion, and it has now become a staple.
I think in my mind, the weight to chew ratio is the more chews you have per weight, the better.
Yes.
So it maintains the chewing for a longer period of time.
Yeah, it's basically how chewy is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. These are not that chewy because they're crisps.
Well, they're crisps, aren't they? So, right. I'll let one of you two speak now because I'm gonna try some now.
No,
I got a mouthful of crisps here.
I'll talk a little bit.
I can do a hilarious anecdote from the 80s about tomato flavoured crisps if you want.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, they used Smith's Crisps, who did the salt and shake crisps, did a flavour and shake crisp.
Ooh.
And you got a multi-pack of 12 completely plain crisps. And in there were little sachets of flavour. So you could add in basically powdered E numbers into your crisps, shake it all up and get whatever flavour you wanted. And part of that was tomato flavoured crisps. So the tomato ketchup was around in the 80s. Now, as a small child in the 80s, I was very, very sensible and obviously only put 1 sachet in a packet of crisps. Did I? Did I, Eck? Me and my mates would just put all 12 sachets in 1 packet, shake it up, and then run around like Habu being a hummingbird in The Simpsons, while my poor dad had to eat 11 packets of plain crisps for the rest of the week. So tomato ketchup crisps are something of a bit of a trip down memory lane for me.
Interestingly, those Smiths ones as well. They did you find they never quite worked? Did they? Because you pour them in the top ones get absolutely coated, and the bottom one's got nothing. Even though you shook for ages, it's still like it would sort of just stick to the top layer. You're like, great.
Totally, and I mean the finger residue thing for that would have been off the chart. It would have been horrendous.
Right. Well, I mean, I've nearly eaten my entire packet.
What? Are you muting yourself? I haven't heard you chew at all. How are you? Are you stealth
I like
chewer?
These are nice.
Have you got some magic gift to eat crisps really quietly?
I just don't chew with my mouth open.
What, do you just swallow crisps like a snake?
Yeah. Hang on. Is this in a better?
Ramming crisps down your throat.
I never thought I'd be brought onto this podcast to discuss how quickly Josh swallows.
So,
I've got a story. Quickly before you go, Pickle.
Okay.
Me and my friends once. One of my friends. We figured out that we could swat. You know those cocktail sausages?
oh my god.
We figured you could swallow them whole. And we're like, cool, right? So we figured that, and we did that, and we're like, cool. What else can we swallow whole? And the little cocktail sausage rolls? The little ones you cook in the oven? I was like, I bet you can't do one. He's like, I bet I can. He nearly died.
It's grim down south, isn't it?
It was incredible. He did nearly die, though. I had to actually give him
Once upon a time, on a summer eve, me and my friends sat around and discussed, what can we swallow whole? That's what Elson did last week.
We should probably get off of Elson swallowing other people's sausages and get onto his expensive lays.
Yeah. So, I think for me, these taste like tomato ketchup, but like not in an overly offensive way. They're quite nice. The flavour's nice on them.
It reminded me a little bit of prawn cocktail. A little bit of something going on there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure prawn cocktail got like ketchup flavour or something in it.
It's that sweet tang, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
So, I think we'll go around. We'll do scores for the different things. So, first score will be for the finger residue contamination. Now,
I'm getting quite a bit on my fingers here,
yeah,
to be honest with you.
I'm getting quite a bit on mine. I'm having to wipe my hands off.
Yeah.
So, I would say that these are going to rate quite low on finger residue. I mean, most crisps do tend to be fair. So I don't think that they're anything exceptionally bad in terms of crisp, but like as a crisp, they do leave a bit. So I'm going to score them. I'm going to score them a 4 on the finger residue contamination.
I was going to go with 4. Yeah, 4 to 3.
So yeah, I'm going to 3 because I think these are slightly more residuey than salt and vinegar already salted or something like that.
Right, okay, so 4 from me and Elson and 3 for Boffnet. Next up, weight to chew. Now again, I'm going to have to score it quite low. Again, it's a crisp. It's a crisp. It's not a negative on the crisp itself. It is just that it is a crisp. And realistically, I've nearly eaten if I wasn't talking on a podcast, I would have eaten the entire bag like really quickly. So again, I'm going to go with a 3, I think, for weight to chew ratio.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably even going to go 2. There's nothing really these. Yeah, not that it's bad. It's a crisp, so
yeah, that's it.
It's going to score low.
I'll probably go 3 because I'm having about 3 or 4 in a handful at a time.
So you're like doubling up on stuff, yeah.
I'm stacking. Yep.
And then the oil index. I don't really notice them feeling overly oily, like in my mouth or on my fingers or anything. It's more the sort of residue, but it's not an oily, which crisps sometimes can be, especially cheaper ones.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rate these a bit higher on that. I'm going to rate them as I think I'm going to go with a 7 on the oil.
I'm going to go with
index.
6. I think that could be because I've got a different brand, but I think it's about a 6 for me.
It's not oily. I'm going to go 7. So your lays are a bit more oily.
Yeah.
It might just be because I've eaten a lot of them, so maybe.
So there we go. Do we still do overall scores, or are we just
let's
doing
do overall?
So overall score out of 10. I'm going to go with a solid 7 out of 10 as a crisp. I think that they're not the most amazing crisps I've had. They are perfectly acceptable. I would definitely eat the rest of the multi-pack that I've got, which I was worried about that I wouldn't like them. But so I'm going to go with a solid 7, which is that is a good snack to have.
I'm going to go with I'm going to go with a 6. I mean, I'm eating these like they're going out of fashion because I'm hungry, but I think there are better flavors out there. So I'm also slightly bitter that I had to pay £5 for them. So they're getting downgraded just on that factor.
Brilliant.
I think I'm going to go 6 as well. The flavor's lovely, but I just think that I would rattle through.
There are better flavors.
Yeah, and I would rattle through these in somebody else's movement turn. And then would spend like their shooting phase licking my fingers.
That's a good point, actually. I've not thought about it as a wargaming snack, which is kind of the point. I've just thought about it as reviewing the crisps. So yeah, I guess as a wargaming snack, I'm going to downgrade my score to a 6 as well.
We have nerfed it. It's been nerfed. You have responded to the community and have nerfed.
Yeah, quicker response time than Games Workshop as well. So, because we've nerfed it before we've put the information out there. We've play tested these crisps. So yeah, there we go. 6s across the board for the tomato ketchup flavoured crisps. Me and Boffnet have got Walkers. Elston has got Lay's. Lesson here is just follow the link that I send you rather than searching it out yourself.
Elston likes an expensive lay.
So there we go.
I do like an expensive lay.
So there we go. That is the snack attack section for this podcast. We'll put the scores up on the Discord. They'll be spoiled for the first week, and then that'll be removed so that it gives people time to experience the scoring live on podcast rather than getting it spoiled on there. If you've got your own suggestions for stuff you want us to try, drop them in the Snack Attack suggestions channel on Discord, or leave a comment down below, and we will work through those as and when we can. We've already got the next one lined up for the next episode, which is the Jealous Sweets Tangy Worms.
I've already eaten 2 packets of them.
I've not eaten any yet. So I got 3 packets. I've given a packet to Wendy, and I've got 2 packets sat. And I've been so tempted to try them, but I'm like, nope. I'm going to wait and try them live on stream.
Get a heads up on it, dude. They're awesome.
Are they nice?
But,
all right, okay. Well, we'll save that for the next episode.
Well, we'll still eat. I'm saving a packet for the episode, but it's
and also just on a calling back to our second Snack Attack episode. I'm currently sat next to a 12-pack of Jack Link's beef jerky that Boffnet has brought me up as a gift. I love that stuff. Thank you so much to Boffnet for suggesting that we try beef jerky. It has now become a staple part of my diet. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not sure, but there we have it.
One packet is 20... Sorry.
I was just going to say, are you saying that Boffnet gave you meat?
Yes. Jerky meat.
Yep. I gave him jerky, which is 25% of his daily intake.
Yeah, there we go. And that
jerk meat.
On that bombshell, that wraps up the Snack Attack section of the show. Now we are on to the final section, which is the storytime section, which is where we recommend a book or an audiobook. And I'm going to caveat this as well for future episode planning ahead. This can be any sort of reading material. Now I don't mean like menus and stuff, but like I read a lot of comic books, so I'm going to sort of include them.
Menus,
yeah, well, it's reading, isn't it? So I'm going to caveat and say this is it's not just restricted to sort of Warhammer centric stuff. This can just be for books in general. That's absolutely fine. This is just what we recommend and or what I've tried recently. And finally, I have a book to suggest that I have just finished reading. This is one that has sort of I've been reading on and off for a while. I sort of dropped off it because I was busy, and then I've got back into it and I've blitzed through the rest of it over the last week. And that is The Infinite and the Divine, which is an absolutely fantastic Necron book focused around Orokin the Diviner and Trazyn the Infinite. I had an absolute blast reading this book. I absolutely love it. It is hilarious. Like, so much personality given to both those characters, and the Necrons as a race, as an army in general. And yeah, I had an absolute blast reading this.
If you were to sum up this book in one word, it would be yoink.
Yeah. So it's written by Robert Rath. And was it Robert Rath or was it Robert Roth? Robert Rath. It is Robert Rath. I was correct the first time. And it's basically, if you don't know who Trazyn and Orokin are, and you want like a sort of real life analog, if you can just sort of sit and imagine Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
Right.
That is what I would say is sort of like a real life, like comparable.
I would go with a slightly different analogy. I would go with Brian Blessed and who else? Mark Hamill.
Brilliant. It's just two grumpy old men. So without going too much into spoilers, because there's a few twists and turns, the book focuses around these two characters that are just both grumpy old men. They hate each other because they both sort of stand for different things. Trazyn is obsessed with the past and preserving the past, whereas Orokin, as a chronomancer, is obsessed with the future and like sort of seeing the future and planning ahead. They clash, they don't get on, and they're both fighting over a MacGuffin, which is a thing to open a thing on a planet, and the whole story takes place over the course of about 10,000 years, from sort of start to finish, and it sort of puts into perspective like Necron's perception of time. And yeah, I can't really go into too much more without going into spoilers, but it is hilarious, the banter between the two of them and the sort of just fuckery that they both go into, messing with each other's plans and stuff is brilliant. And if you're even slightly interested in Necrons, or even if you're not, to be honest, I would highly recommend this book.
I particularly listen to it the second time round. At first time, I didn't really get the understanding of this book because I didn't understand the concept of humor in 40k.
Yeah.
It was just not like a registered thing. And the second time round, I was like, the amount of times you hear one of them say, "You bastard," it's just like, yes! They're just two grumpy old men stealing from each other.
The audio book is voiced by Richard Reed?
Richard Green. Richard Reed. Yeah, Richard Reed, sorry.
Yeah, Richard Reed, who also voiced the two Twice Dead King books that are out so far, the second of which I am currently reading. So yeah, he's fantastic, the Necron voices that he does. I've not listened to the full audiobooks because I prefer to read books rather than listen to them, but I have listened to some snippets just to get an idea, and he's a fantastic voice actor.
I do. The whole concept of this book is... it's so strange when you see, like, for example, when they get taken to trial for like stealing from each other. Yeah. And then
it's just like two squabbling kids.
Yeah. One of them thinks to be real clever, and then the other one's like, but what was it? Yeah, because Trazyn stole something from a tomb world that hadn't woken up yet. Yeah. And they were like, what was it? He basically said he took it away because the tomb world was dead, and Orokin was like, "But were they actually awake yet?" And he's like, "Well, meh. And he's like, "So you took it away from them before they woken up?" He's like, "Yeah, but they were going to die." So he's like, "You took it away from them, and you didn't tell them that they were going to die." And he's like, and the whole book is this kind of like, okay, might have screwed up there. Yeah. And then yoink.
It is brilliant, and it's like, it's not just Necrons. There's Orcs in it, there's Eldar in it, there's Tyranids in it, there's Space Marines and humans in it. It is fantastic. I can't really recommend it enough. It is quite easily one of the best 40k books that I have read. Admittedly, I've not read tons, but I have read enough, and I do think this is one of the better ones.
And again, it's if you go through it the first time and it doesn't make a great deal of sense, go through it the second time, because it is infinitely funnier when second time around you're just like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense now. So first time could be a little bit jarring because it's 40k and comedy. You're like, but then yeah, it's brilliant.
Often you've been awfully quiet as an avid Necron fan. Considering one of your most complete armies is a Necron army, are you likely to try this?
About that.
Are you likely to try this book at any point, or?
I'm probably not likely to try it. I mean, it does sound like waiting for Godot in space. So if it's waiting for Robbo Guilliman or something, that would be quite good. And I did just have to Google if Richard Reed was Richard Reed the Shoe Bomber, and it is not. It is a different Richard Reed.
It's also not the leader of the Fantastic Four.
No. Other Richard Reeds are available. It's not. I mean, listening to you eulogise about it, it might be something that potentially falls across the old audiobook thing at some point. I will have to say at this point, I get my 40k comedy from reading Caiaphas Cain books.
Okay.
Because they are just fantastic. I love them, and you can reread those again and again because they are just great. So that's where I get my 40k comedy from.
That's fair enough.
Gotcha. Well, the one last thing I want to really just sort of throw out there for people reading this book as well. Time is very
wibbly wobbly.
Throwaway. Well, it's not even wibbly wobbly. It's more. It's very throwaway. So, for example, there's a point where they have an argument and it lasts 5 hours, but they only say about 4 words. So they're like, someone will say something, and then they'll wait for an hour and just look at each other, and then they'll say something. And the concept of time to them is, I think this book spans over like 10,000 years or something like that, isn't it?
Something like that. It's pretty much over the huge changes on this one. It's all circular. It's all centered around this one planet and the various sort of stages of that planet's like life. And like different inhabitants and different like geographical makeup and stuff and how it changes. But yeah, no, like that section that you were talking about where they're having the argument over like multiple hours and like just the way that that's written, it's like so-and-so said like such and such, and then 5 hours passed. And like it's so deadpan, like, and so just blunt with it. It's not subtle, it's not like trying to make it artsy-fartsy. It's just it took a long time.
It sounds like my last relationship.
There's even a point in it where they mention the Horus Heresy, and they're having this little feud of stealing this MacGuffin. And there's a point where Trazyn's like, yeah, but the Horus Heresy is more important, so I had to quickly do that and get all the stuff harvested from that. And then it carries on. So there is a brief moment
I like it. Yeah,
they mentioned the Horus Heresies happened. You're like, okay.
Yeah, it's like the start of every chapter, and it's like the last chapter will have been like 3,000 years before the plot device, and then like the next chapter starts, and it's like 500 years before the plot device. It's like what? That's like 2,500 years zip by. It's brilliant. So that's the Infinite and Divine. Like I said, pick it up on book, pick it up on audiobook. The audiobook is a fantastic listen. And if you've got any suggestions or thoughts on this one, or thoughts for stuff for us to try in the future, drop them in the podcast suggestions channel over on Discord or in the comments down below. And that about does it. We have wrapped up. We are at the end of yet another episode. We've got a little bit longer on this episode. I think it's just because of how much we were enjoying ourselves talking about the main topic. We've had a fantastic time. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to the podcast. I hope you will, if you have enjoyed it, leave us a like, subscribe, review, and all that good stuff. And we're going to wrap it up. So over to my esteemed co-host of many years, Elston from Elston Nation. Where can people find you on the World Wide Web? And
if you could see the pose I'm pulling right now, it would be some glorious Homelander kind of pose. Anyway, my name's Elston. You can find me on YouTube at Elston Nation. That's mainly where you find me. There's a Facebook page, Elston Nation's Minis. But yeah, if you ever want to drop us a line, if you want to ask us questions, either the Pickle Jar Discord or my own Facebook page or on YouTube, you know, all the places. That's social media in general. That's where you can find me.
Cool. And to our first ever esteemed guest, Well, it's the first ever guest, and he is also an esteemed guest. Maybe we'll have more esteemed guests in the future, but this is the first of both.
You might have less esteemed guests.
Where can we find you?
Basically, I don't do any content like that, so you can find me on Pickle's amazing Discord. I am there virtually all the time, modding that, and if I'm not there, I'll be at the bar.
Brilliant.
Nice.
And as always, guys, you can find me over on the Pickle Jar YouTube channel, where I drop videos every couple of weeks or so, or aim to. We also have the live stream channel, which is Pickle Vision. Links for all these down below. The live stream channel, I live stream every Wednesday and every other Sunday morning. And yeah, you can find this podcast everywhere you find podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and also very soon, or while you're listening to this probably, well, it depends. You might already be watching this on YouTube. There is a YouTube channel coming. The channel is set up. We're sorting out a release schedule for older episodes leading up to the next one. So that is coming very, very soon. So links for everything will be in the description, in the show notes and everything. So just follow us wherever you would like. And that about wraps it up. So we're going to love you and leave you. Thank you very much for listening. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
You-do.
This is the part of the show where we usually just sort of ramble a bit because, like the intro, we have got no idea what we're doing.
I reckon what we should do is use Wargamers Anonymous, but also use your favourite 80s cartoon show catchphrase and put Wargamers Anonymous in there.
Can you give us an example of how that works?
Wargamers Anonymous, roll out.
I'm going to try and think of everything was quiet in the valley. That is until Wargame Anonymous woke up.
We could do it like a Cards Against Humanity style Wargamers Anonymous thing. Like, for example, what should you never put inside you? Wargamers Anonymous.
I was about to say cocktail sausages.
Brilliant.